What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down, what moved it, and what shorts did. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi went up 1.48% today, $15 the low, $15.40 the high. So initially you had a lot of volatility, but the market did gain some pretty good momentum. And it kind of kick-started off with the whole tariffs. So Trump did, effective today, do a 25% tariff on aluminum products as well as steel. That seemed to have really driven up a lot of good momentum in the broader market. So that's kind of what drove that higher. Aside from that though, it kind of tapered off throughout the day, and that's, I think, just linked to some potential fears on CPI coming out on Wednesday, Powell tomorrow, and as well Wednesday. So it should be a fun time. But aside from that, nothing specific to SoFi. So no SEC filings or anything like that. They do have their fireside chat coming out tomorrow. So that's at 1:50 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully Anthony drops some good information or some potential Easter eggs on what they plan on doing as far as updates or something like that. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Aside from all of the fun stuff, latest 13Fs, a lot of people seem to be jumping up and down that BlackRock, not just with SoFi, but across the board, really increased their presence within the market. So they definitely were doubling down in Q4. So this was disclosed on February the 7th. So in SoFi's case, BlackRock did increase roughly 4.09%. So pretty good stuff. Aside from that, you are seeing a lot of new transactions. So a lot of the green ones brand new. This one was a put though, so 791,000 in puts. But at the same time, they also did increase their actual common stock by 101,000%. So yeah, you're seeing a lot of activity coming from institutions, and I think that's kind of the writing on the wall in general, because even if we look over here at the ownership from quarter over quarter change, it does look as though institutions right now own 42.83% of the float, and they did increase roughly around 5%, again, quarter over quarter. So pretty good stuff as far as that. The only other update that I wanted to kind of talk on, which is about this. For those of you that kind of watch my channel here and there, I've talked on how the new SEC transparency rule is going to add a lot of insight going forward, because right now all of these 13Fs, if institutions are shorting, they don't have to disclose their short position. You only have to disclose your long position. So it is kind of flawed, but with the new SEC transparency rule, it was going to change that. It was going to add full transparency, both long, short, you kind of show all your positions. But there was one update that kind of came out, and it was effective today. So it looks like the SEC is allowing some exemptions to that. Obviously large hedge funds and whatever else kind of meeting their criteria as what they state. So not the best information. So I guess it's going to be restricted transparency, as kind of weird as that sounds. So it is what it is. Obviously we can't change that. It was hopeful to think that they were going to fully allow that massive amount of transparency on who is shorting what stock and what amount. So yeah, SEC is flawed once again. So I just wanted to kind of give an update on this, but in general, it looks as though it's still going to be in the first half of 2025. So something to kind of look forward to. As far as shorts, they did return 296,000 shares today. 12.24% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 131.78 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost per average 0.59, minimum 0.54. So that broker that was really trying to drum up some business, they kind of went away momentarily. So what's your viewpoint on that? Moving over to options, 12 million in calls, 4.41 in puts. 46% of all the options being done today were optimistic in nature. You have this one right here. So between 11:45 and 11:50, there was 158,000 in premiums. And if we kind of pull this up, since that one kind of stood out, you have a lot of, it looks like multiple different transactions, a combination of both bullish and bearish, but it seems as though $13 puts were sold. So you can tell that based on the bid and the ask and where it was. So generally that's very optimistic, and this is why it's seen as bullish. I don't know if you guys can see that with my face. So there, you can kind of see that it's seen as bullish. And then the third one seems to be bearish, and that one is a $30 put that was purchased. So kind of mixed data. A lot of institutions do that, multi-leg transactions. But moving on from that though, of the call options that were purchased, there seems to be a consensus for it to be around that 1750, possibly even 18 for this week. So a lot of big data is coming out the rest of the week that could really move the market in either direction, but there seems to be a lot more optimism. Bears on the flip side are anticipating for it to be sub roughly around that $14 range. So interesting kind of to see that. These are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So frequency is definitely moving back up, but still somewhat mixed. You are seeing lots of pockets of selling going on. So institutions were somewhat kind of selling SoFi a little bit. And I think one big driving thing for the broader market was algorithmic trading. It was piggybacking off of the optimism and really was buying up a lot of stocks, whereas big money, if you look at this data, was truly kind of selling. And it looks as though all the things that show as bid are essentially sells. So you have lots of strong kind of pockets of selling ultimately. And I think in general, a lot of this selling could be attributed to possibly just fear about what is coming next. So like I said, you have Powell coming out tomorrow and also Wednesday, CPI on Wednesday, PPI Thursday. It is going to be a crazy ride. A lot of big companies as well unveiling their earnings, so it should be a fun time. But with it closing at $15.13, right above this pivot point, so $15.12 is going to be that key support that you really want to watch for it to hold going into the next couple of trading days. Flip side, 1470 is going to be the second level of that support, and then 1553 is going to be the next strong target. So just watch for that to be kind of that breakout point for going into tomorrow. High for today was 1540, so lightly below that, if that kind of makes sense. But moving on, looking at the actual chart. So with it closing at 1516, 1578 is that yellow line right there. So that's that 50-day moving average. It did, luckily enough, close above the ALMA. So it shows that it wants to kind of move higher, but in the short term, you have that 1540 or 1540 range based on the fib levels. And then you have 1578, the 50-day moving average. So those are going to be two targets that you really want to watch in the short term for SoFi to really get above, if you are going to see any sort of recovery, technical recovery. So just kind of watch for those. Aside from that, stochastic RSI is very oversold. So let's say if Powell comes out and says, hey, you know what, we blah blah blah, we might be looking at rate cuts, probably not for this one, but for the following meeting, I think the market might actually buy that up, because based on this right over here, you can already see that the market's already not really forecasting much of anything for the March 19th meeting. So if Powell comes out and says that, I think the market is already pricing that in. That could be maybe one of those opportunities that the market sees that this whole scenario is optimistic and really moves it higher. Again, there's a lot of different scenarios. A lot of people are going to be listening to exactly the finite words that he does use as per usual. So yeah, it's going to be a fun time. But nonetheless, just take note of some of those strong support and resistance points like I mentioned. Quickly going over here, no new analyst ratings unless it just came out after hours or something, but still has that sell $6 price target. Compass Point, Giuliano, 56% success rating. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Did you buy today? Did you sell? Did you do any options? I myself haven't done anything for SoFi for a good week and a bit, but once Powell and CPI comes out, I feel like that'll be a good time to potentially start doing more options, selling puts, buying calls, or even depending on what happens, maybe start selling covered calls again. Anything is possible. So let me know your viewpoint. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon where I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there. Take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.